Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you joining us for the Nuanced Healthcare webinar, Achieve Unmatched Outcomes with Epic EHR, featuring Brian Lancaster of Nebraska Medicine. Just a few housekeeping items I'd like to review before we get started. As mentioned, all attendees have been automatically placed on mute. Today's presentation is being recorded, and a link to that recording will be provided to you via email, typically within 24 to 48 hours after the close of the session. If you have a question, you can submit it at any time using the chat window. We will hold all questions until the end of the presentation, but again, you can submit them at any time. If for some reason we are unable to address your question in the time allotted, we will ensure that someone follows up with you in a timely manner. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Brian Lancaster. Brian is a seasoned healthcare information technology executive with over 19 years of experience. Currently, Lancaster is the Executive Director of Information Management at Nebraska Medicine and is responsible for the vision, direction, coordination, and the oversight of the delivery of the highest quality information technology to the enterprise. He has led the enterprise's technology strategy to achieve HIMSS Level 7, provided the data analytics platform that enabled the Visent 2016 Quality Leadership Award, as well as executed a data center migration strategy that has allowed a higher level of service at a lower cost through the adoption of virtualization technologies. Prior to Nebraska Medicine, Brian was at Cerner for 17 years, and during his tenure had executive responsibilities for the strategic direction of Cerner's physician workflow, population health management, and data warehousing solutions. He is a recognized innovator with 7 inventions awarded patents and an additional 12 inventions awaiting patent approval. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Brian.
Hi, good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to kind of share Nebraska Medicine's progress in the space. And this afternoon, we're basically going to kind of walk through some of the background on Nebraska Medicine and how we approached looking to optimize our documentation processes within Epic, talk about how we approached the project, then also some of our lessons learned, and then ultimately kind of open it up for questions and conversation. So for a little bit of background on Nebraska Medicine, sorry, I'm having difficulty advancing the slides. So Nebraska Medicine, if you're unfamiliar with us, we're located in Omaha, Nebraska, and we serve as the academic medical center for the University of Nebraska, so go Big Red. We have more than 1,000 affiliated physicians, and you might have heard our name attached to the treatment of Ebola in 2014, as we're home to one of the largest of 4 high-level biocontainment patient care units in the United States. We're also under a period of tremendous growth, and you can really see that as highlighted by 2 projects. The first is a state-of-the-art cancer center, Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center, which is a $300 million state-of-the-art cancer center that will be comprised of a 98 laboratory research tower, a multidisciplinary outpatient center, and a hospital with over 100 inpatient beds. And that project is opening up later this spring and has a lot of my attention right now. Then the other project is IXL, which is a $100 million virtual reality training center that we have the goal with that project to do what aviation simulation did for the flight industry for healthcare education. And that project coming online later in 2018. So we're real excited about several things we're doing from an innovation standpoint. If you were to look at what we were have been able to do in terms of accolades, we've done several I think exciting and noteworthy work to distinguish ourselves as the premier healthcare provider in the region. We were awarded HIMSS Level 7, and during that process recognized for our governance, clinical, and business analytics, as well as our disaster recovery and business continuity strategies. And then also, most recently, we were awarded as a top 10 academic medical center for quality by the Vizient Award in 2016. And again, we were the only health system in our region to earn this recognition. From a systems perspective, and I think this is indicated by our HIMSS Level 7 attainment, we are highly automated across the enterprise. And if you look at this diagram, you'll see our key clinical, diagnostic, business, image management, telehealth, MDI systems. From a clinical perspective, and it's really highlighted by the green box, we are an Epic shop, and we're really looking to consolidate and enhance other clinical systems onto the Epic platform, and which I think is pretty consistent with other organizations. So over time, we'll see adoption of Radiant, we'll see adoption of Beaker, and things such as that. And then if you were to look at the gray box in the center, this is really what we're going to talk about today, which is how we leverage Nuance as a key advancement to our clinical systems, and really have achieved, I think, some really interesting things, both from a usability standpoint as well as a quality standpoint. So if you were to look at where we've been historically with Epic, or to set the stage, if you will, we went live with Epic in 2012, first with ambulatory in May, then inpatient in August. This included moving 1.7 million records from our previous EMR, and so 15 years of lab, RAD, and scan documents, which we supplemented with then a brand new rollout of a house-wide CPOE and physician documentation go live. So it was pretty much a big bang effort. And then since that time, we've had high levels of adoption across all of our Epic functionality. And then with that high level of adoption, and you can see in this diagram of the bright green line, we pretty much immediately after that inpatient go live, we saw a huge drop in our transcribed lines. And I think this was a applauded as a success of our Epic implementation, and as, again, a considerable success factor tying directly to our ability to automate across the board, as well as to get that physician documentation go live at the same time as that Epic rollout. Our approach to documentation at this time frame, and remains our approach today, was to leverage Epic's structured documentation capabilities for the logical sections for structure. And what I mean by that is using structure for sections of the note, such as review of systems or physical exam, which really lends itself to the point-and-click structure. But then we're using kind of the free text sections, if you will, to allow the user to do narrative sections. So for history, present illness, impression, and plan, sections that really have more of a narrative to them, we went live with kind of the free text capabilities. And our rationale there was allow the users to use structure in a way that allows them to optimize entry the best way possible. Again, review of systems, physical exam, but then allow them to tell the patient story in their own words was one of our key strategies. So with that backdrop, really since that period of go live, really our single source for the most dissatisfaction from a physician perspective was on documentation. The complaint was really around the amount of time it was taking them. So this was the clickiness of the applications within Epic, as well as the amount of, so that includes the computer interactions. And then the physicians also raised the issue that they thought the quality of their documentation was suffering. And really that comes down to not being able to take the time to tell that narrative. So they're just quickly getting, clicking in the boxes and writing quick, abrupt notes, and then really losing the narrative. In addition to that, in another area of dissatisfaction was they felt that they were tied to their desks because that is where they had to go to write their notes. And really the request, and if I say request, what I really mean is the demand was they wanted a solution that they wanted solutions that would work the way they work, and that required them to be mobile. And with all this feedback, and again, if you do the math, you see that we went live in 2012, and we're just now talking about some great progress we did with Nuance. Our initial response was, and I think this is a typical response, was around optimization efforts. So working with the different departments to create new content, to optimize workflows, to do additional training. Those are all things we looked at, and we did that pretty much since go live up until the time we implemented Nuance. And that required additional builds, again, training, and then obviously with any go live, we have code fixes as well. All of these efforts helped, but they never quite provided a permanent, sustainable solution. And really, to define a permanent solution, we did an initial voice recognition pilot in our pathology department, and that pilot was done with Dragon Medical Network Edition, and we had success with that pilot, but we really were starting to look at, well, how do we roll this out on an enterprise perspective? So with that, and we collected our comprehensive requirements for that enterprise deployment, and we started to look at the market for options. And at a high level, we really wanted or needed a solution that would be easily deployed and supported. And so as any information technology organization, we're always strapped with more demand for our services than supply, so it had to be easily deployable and supported. And we also wanted to have a high degree of accuracy within the voice recognition engine. Our physicians felt if the voice recognition engine wasn't accurate, they wouldn't adopt it, and then subsequently it would require additional resources to help troubleshoot and tune. So that was definitely a key requirement for us. And then we also wanted or needed our physicians to be mobile, so that they needed to be able to access this off of a mobile device, as well as when they were working at home over a VPN connection, to really support more advanced use cases of mobility and things such as that. And then we also had a vision of not just being more efficient, but really driving high quality of documentation, and really wanted technology that would align to those future more advanced use cases. And those advanced use cases were really about providing decision support at the point of care while the physician is dictating. And our hypothesis with that was if we could influence a physician to think about the quality of care for the patient they were writing their note on, then we could have a direct correlation to an action that would achieve that higher quality of care. So that was definitely a part of our requirements as well. So from our review of the marketplace and with our empirical experiences with Dragon Medical Network Edition, we really came to the conclusion that there was only one choice, and that choice was to adopt Nuance's cloud capabilities within Dragon Medical One. And this meant building a strategy that included the deployment of Dragon Medical One for the enterprise use cases or for new users, but that allow them to get access to it on the network, but also providing access while working working remotely over VPN by using PowerMic Mobile on the go. We also needed the PowerPack content, as well as looking at adoption and key metrics through the Dragon Medical Analytics. And so this slide really provides a high-level view of the Nuance products that we selected and deployed. Once we selected Dragon Medical One, we then built a detailed strategic approach that really outlined the infrastructure requirement for mobility and easier adoption of voice recognition technologies. So easier adoption in the sense that the voice profiles would be taking advantage of better tuning technologies, as well as that Nuance would be maintaining the speech anywhere in Nuance management servers. So this ensured that we would always be on the latest version, as well as freed up critical IT resources for other tasks. So definitely a key part of our strategy was to leverage those cloud deployment technologies to free up IT resources and to become more nimble. We also need to consider what the plan would be for our current deployment of Dragon Medical Network Edition, and we decided that we would leave pathology really where they were with Dragon Medical Network Edition, as they were happy with that deployment, and we really wanted to focus our efforts on the broader enterprise to get new users onto the platform. We also wanted to remain focused on the voice recognition technologies for the narrative sections, which meant we had to hold the rollout of Haiku and Canto's note writing capabilities, until which time Epic could support templates in their notes, which was tied with the Epic 2015 upgrade. So really, kind of out of the box for us, we're looking at Dragon Medical One as on the desktop with the Power Mic Mobile for mobility, and we're going to introduce Haiku and Canto at a later point in time. Our scope here then was for physicians, residents, and mid-levels, and then we also wanted to make sure that the technology we were deploying sat well with future goals around using natural language processing to drive the documentation activities related to quality initiatives. So in essence, that wanted Dragon Medical One for voice recognition, as it would make it easier to adopt the computer-assisted physician documentation capabilities in the future, because we could start to leverage the voice profiles that were used as part of that initiative. So those are all key to our strategic direction. From there, we laid out our implementation plan. It was a pretty aggressive plan from my perspective. So a 6-month plan that started in December with completion in June. And from a plan perspective, really looked at 4 different types of resources. The first are the key project leadership, so project manager as well as the physician champion, who was key to our success. Then we also made sure we had the right technical experts aligned. So these are resources like system engineers, Epic client system managers, and then also Epic workflow experts. So this gets into experts on the application side in terms of orders, off time, ClinDoc, ambulatory, etc. And then we also thought it was key to tap expertise that really understood both the nuanced technology and the Epic workflows. And we saw that expertise by way of the physician technology partners, PTP. Again, they brought forward those resources that understood nuance, understood Epic workflows, and that was the solution architect role. And they also helped us directly with our design activities, so the analysis, build, testing, and then further training and optimization. So we think having kind of that key mix of Epic expertise with our technical and on-site Epic expertise really was a sweet spot for the project, and a sweet spot for what ended up being our success. From a technical deployment standpoint, our biggest task was really migrating the data from the on-premise Nuance Management Server, NMS, to the NMS server in the cloud. So Nuance provided a cloud migration tool that assisted us with that migration to the cloud. And as I'm sure everyone would have, that was a lot of concern, a lot of discussion up front on the planning side. And I'm happy to report that the cloud migration tool really worked without issue, and it really put our mind at ease, kind of moving the on-prem to the cloud-based system. Additionally, we implemented LDAP integration, which required us to have a local call forwarder installed on-premise. The call forwarder basically maintained our local LDAP integration and then forwarded all the NMS calls to the NMS in the cloud. And that was a rather straightforward implementation as well. So from a technical perspective, we really saw those as our 2 big risks, and again, we really didn't have issue with that. It kind of all worked, which was very coming, because that was some of the big concerns going into the project, was how would we migrate our on-prem to the cloud-based system. So as previously stated, our project was kicked off in December, and then we completed in June, and we started bringing on users to the cloud in April. And as you can see from this diagram, we pretty much had high adoption right out of the gate. Our internal goal, or how we defined enterprise-wide deployment, was to get to 300 users and then to maintain that level of adoption. And we're just shy of that, but again, I think broadly speaking, this was the most rapidly adopted and sustained use for any technology we've rolled out to physicians. And then you can also see in the lower graph the aggregate time savings, that this is basically by using the auto text feature and the PowerPack content to save time. And we really monitor this in terms of what it would take to kind of capture that information with previous approaches, which also speaks to the ability to use the analytics package to quantify our time savings as well as to monitor adoption of key features. And I think this is really a great feature of Dragon Medical One, is to leverage those analytics that allows us to monitor adoption and then prioritize our optimization activities around usages and seeing a potential area that may have not adopted as high as we would have hoped, and then we can reach out directly with those users and move it forward. So after the implementation, we conducted a survey of the providers to assess their satisfaction with the rollout. And really, I think we found a remarkable improvement with both the usability of the Epic system for documentation as well as their overall satisfaction. And I really found it particularly interesting to see the data on the improvement of the quality of documentation. The quality of documentation wasn't necessarily an explicit goal of the project, but to me, just seeing that the 71% stated that the quality of the document improved really speaks to the usability gains in the capture of narrative text to tell the patient's story. So now they can take the time to craft those narratives, because it doesn't take as much time as previously doing it. And I also think this built assurance that we had addressed the area that was the source of the highest levels of dissatisfaction with our physician community. So now we're on to the next problem, as we think this has been widely seen as a success at Nebraska Medicine. As with any implementation, we do have our lessons that we learned, and so this kind of summarizes both the good and the bad. First, we found that having on-site expertise from PTP, again, they help provide expertise from an Epic workflow perspective and a nuanced technology perspective. We really found that expertise to be invaluable, especially as it was aligned or assigned to workflow expertise from our side. They also help bridge the gap between our workflow experts and then the technical experts. So I don't know if we're unique in that regard from an information technology perspective, but we do sometimes have a gap between the application side and the technical experts. And PTP really helped us make sure that we thought through everything and that we were also communicating between the workflow experts and the technical experts. We also had both PTP trainers and Nebraska Medicine trainers engaged throughout the project. This was different than how we handled other projects in the past, where we kind of wait to get the training group involved. I think this paid huge dividends to our success, because the trainers really had context of the technology and the workflows and could really incorporate that into their training. One of our more controversial decisions, or one we debated quite extensively, was whether or not to require training. But we did require a 2-hour in-person training session that had an optional 1-hour coaching session. And we really felt that those required sessions really led to end user productivity. And we felt that we could mandate the training as the users really had the desire and want for voice recognition. Now, after we had the training sessions, we did find that many users, if not, I think, most of the users, didn't need the coaching sessions, and those were the individual one-on-one sessions. And I think that it was due to the way the voice profiles work in Dragon Medical One. They pretty much worked right out of the box for most users, and I think that speaks to the engine that's utilized to really take advantage of a broader scale of users and dialects and really get it to work out of the box. And that was what we found on site. Then the one thing that I wish we would have thought through better, so this is the kind of the bad, if you will, we really didn't think enough about how the workflows would be different on a mobile basis. So how should we have thought through the usage of mobile technology to really change workflows that were done today? So most of our workflows are based on traditional use cases in front of the desktop, and we had to kind of reassess our workflows and training approaches to really take full advantage of PowerMic Mobile and to use voice recognition on the go. And then once we got to Haiku and Canto's capabilities to be rolled out as well, we adjusted our training as well. And the adjustments came more of a reaction. I think we should have thought through more up front what that should have done in terms of our workflow and our training. So really the one big lesson learned that I think we could have done a better job at was really architecting the workflows and training up front in context of mobility. And again, it seems obvious now that I talk about it because mobility was one of our success factors, but we didn't do enough to kind of change those up front. We changed them kind of on the fly and then brought those back into the curriculum after we started to see what users' questions were through the training process. So that was kind of the one big lesson learned. From a next step perspective, we are kind of quote unquote done with our Dragon Medical One rollout, and as I shared, and we saw broad usage and we're getting quite good benefits from it. I say quote unquote done because you really are never done with a project. We continue to do training and do optimization and things such as that, but for all intents and purposes, we've completed that rollout. And now we're planning the rollout of Dragon Advisor that will allow us to take advantage of the technology, improve the quality of documentation through advisor workflows. So as I previously mentioned, I think we did improve quality of documentation, but that was more just because addressing usability. Now physicians can have more time to craft the narrative, which drives quality of documentation. But now we're going to have more mindful approaches through advisors that adhere to the user, and while they're writing their note, to consider different things that tie directly to quality initiatives like Vizient. That I believe this will allow us to continue our documentation quality journey, and the improvements we saw just through the usability work were really just the beginning. Again, I think this is one of the key reasons we selected Dragon Medical One, was it aligned well with kind of future more advanced use cases, and we're starting that work right now. So with that, that's kind of I'm landing with the kind of the canned materials, and I think Nuance wants to provide additional opportunities to learn about what can be done with Epic, as well as then I think we'll open up for questions.
Absolutely. Brian, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, before we jump into the Q&A, we just really do want to share with you a couple of options for you to start a conversation with Nuance. One is you can download a great infographic that we have about the 7 ways to enhance the physician experience with Epic. It is at our nuance.com/go/epic. We invite you to certainly take a look at that. Another option is schedule a briefing with us today. Reach out to your Nuance account executive, and there is a phone number here, and we'll leave this up for folks to take down the information. But certainly reach out to us and start that conversation. We have a number of other webinars that are going to be coming up over the next couple of weeks. You can see here from our schedule, we've got the next one on February 8th, which is going to go over our CDI solution. On February 15th, we're going to be joined by Physician Technology Partners. And rounding out the schedule on March 4th, we're going to be talking about our medical imaging solutions. And then part and parcel to everything we do is our experience at the HIMSS trade show. So we certainly invite you, if you're going to be there, to come join us. Schedule a demo on site, and there is a URL here, engage.nuance.com, and I'm not going to read the rest of it to you. But certainly, again, that's another option for you to reach out to us if you are going to be attending that event. Okay, so that's everything that I wanted to kind of wrap up with today. So at this point, we're going to open it up for a question and answer period. I did see something that did come on. Brian, this is actually going to come back to you. What other Nuance healthcare solutions are you using or are you potentially exploring today? Brian, are you on mute? Oh, did we lose Brian?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had put you on mute because I had a cough. I gave a brilliant answer, so I'll try to do it again. From a Nuance perspective, it's mainly we're mainly using Nuance Dragon Medical One and Dragon Medical Network Edition, so the voice recognition package, as well as then are currently rolling out Dragon Medical Advisor. With Dragon Medical One, we are using Power Mic Mobile, as well as the Power Pack content, and then we did leverage PTP from an implementation and optimization standpoint. But we are not using Nuance from a CDI content perspective, if that was maybe the question. Okay. Great. Actually, Brian, there's another question for you here as well. So in addition to the departments that you have rolled out the Dragon Medical One solution, somebody indicates here that they did not see the emergency department mentioned. Did you not roll out Dragon there, or was it not a part of the plan? We did roll out Dragon housewide, so that includes the emergency department. So if I provide information that didn't include that, I apologize, but it was basically to all providers, so providers being physicians, students, across the board in every department. Wonderful, great. Another question here is, based on your experience with physician satisfaction, how did you ensure that Dragon Medical One worked seamlessly with Epic for their daily activities versus having to add another tool for them to use? Sure, yeah, that's a great question, and that really starts, I think, with how we rolled out Epic in 2012. So with the rollout of Epic, we established a medical director contact at each one of the departments, each one of the specialties, and that person was really empowered and on point to kind of speak for that specialty and those providers for all workflows, and clearly including documentation. So if there's ever a content change or feedback, that person provides us insights to that specialty's perspective and that specialty's workflow. So then when we look to roll out Dragon Medical One, we basically just leverage that model. So in that model being, we have a clinical governance group that's in essence run by our Chief Medical Information Officer, who kind of serves up any feedback, any ideas from the other specialties that are gathered through the medical director and then also through our Epic analysts who work to support those medical directors. So that model, I think, gave us a great platform to make sure we're thinking about it from a workflow perspective and then also from kind of the specialty perspective of those workflows. Then another key aspect of what we did when we rolled out Dragon Medical One is we really leveraged experts from PTP who provided insights to how the Nuance technology would then work within those Epic workflows. So again, we established those contacts throughout the departments and specialties that then allowed us to seamlessly plug in the kind of Nuance expertise and the Epic expertise that PTP represents, but then we could push that out through those forums to make sure we were thinking of it as a workflow versus just a tool. Because I'm sure, as everyone knows, if you focus on a tool, it can really fall short and not get utilized and to provide kind of value or a solution.
Great, thank you. Another question back to you, Brian, is how many Dragon Medical One licenses are you currently utilizing?
Yeah, so the adoption metric, I think we're pushing about 265 or so right now, but we're all in. We have licensed 300 is the number we're looking at.
Great, thank you. Okay, another question in relation to the PowerMic mobile. With the use of iPhones and Androids, are you seeing any lag times in dictation?
No, we've not seen any lag times. In fact, we actually see a better experience with PowerMic Mobile than the PowerMics that we had initially planned for, which is kind of one of the backstories to really trying to understand. I wish we would have understood what mobility would have done to the overall arching workflow, because we wouldn't have had so many physical mics and so many physical stations set up for dictation, because physicians really gravitated well towards the PowerMic Mobile because it was really conducive to how they work, as well as we didn't see any lag times or anything like that.
Wonderful, thank you. A question for the Nuance team here on the phone. Can someone touch upon the licensing structure for the PowerMic Mobile? Is that a separate product with a separate cost in addition to the Dragon Medical One licenses?
Hey, Amy. This is Rhonda. Yeah, the PowerMic Mobile is actually a separate license from Dragon Medical One. I think that was the basic question, correct?
Yes.
I don't know if I heard all parts of it. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you. Another question here that has come in is, what other documentation options are available to the physicians, i.e. Epic partial dictation functionality, scribes, etc.? Brian, this is probably back to you.
Yeah, so we don't, so we're not using kind of the Epic partial dictation feature. So our approach, in essence, was leveraging the free text capabilities prior to Nuance, but then the Nuance capabilities for the free text that would alleviate the need to do partial dictation. So really, for our users, the options are create your note in Epic using the note writer capabilities. We didn't support other modalities or other solutions, and we don't also support a scribe workflow either. It was really, you need to create your note within Epic, which again, part of the backstory here was we moved off a prior EMR to Epic and introduced CPOE and documentation all at one time. So it was big bang. So right out of the gate, we were teaching people how to use Epic and required Epic to write their notes, which then in turn to a long period of time of dissatisfaction with that approach. We tried several optimization techniques, and then we ultimately didn't solve that until we rolled out Dragon Medical One.
Wonderful, thank you. This next question I think might be a combination, Brian, for you and maybe for some of the nuanced folks too, is how much training is really required to ensure a smooth transition from a user that's using Dragon Medical Network Edition to adopting Dragon Medical One?
So we didn't move our users off of Dragon Network Edition, the Dragon Medical Network Edition. We basically still have those users in pathology leveraging. One of the reasons for that was if it's not broke, why fix it sort of mindset, and we really wanted to focus on rolling out kind of enterprise-wide. The second was there are some advanced features on Dragon Medical Network Edition in terms of scripting that a couple pathologists were using, and we couldn't move them to the Dragon Medical One. So again, we haven't migrated those users per se. We did migrate the Dragon server from on-prem to off-prem through the cloud migration tool, and that was a pretty seamless process. So we still have Dragon Medical Edition for the current users.
Wonderful, great.
Amy, hey, it's Don. I can also add to that.
That'd be great.
I would also say that migrating from one to another, it's really a minimal learning curve. Commands, voice navigation, corrections, all of those are consistent across platforms and devices.
Yeah, typically it takes a provider just to get them educated and transferred over. To Donna's point, very minimally. I think if you can touch a physician for 30 minutes or so on the differences, it usually gives them a good idea of how to utilize the different functionalities, the different user interfaces, and there are some variability a little bit in the auto text that they're using when they move from Network Edition to Dragon Medical One.
Wonderful, thank you. Brian, back to you. We believe a question in relation to the network diagram I think that you shared is it looked like you were implementing Dragon Medical One along with Epic using VMware. Do your end users have access to DMO outside of Epic?
So we have implemented basically through our virtual server on the HyperConnect side, so for use within Epic, as well as we also allow and support access via Haiku Canto, and then also PowerMic Mobile as well. So they can dictate outside as well.
Great, thank you. I just want to pause for a second. We do have a couple of other questions, but for those of you that are still on the line, I just want to let you know that if we do run out of time and we are not able to address your question live here, we will ensure that somebody follows up with you in a timely manner. Okay, so back to our questions. So Brian, how did you manage your physicians through the process of moving from transcription to Epic to Dragon? And a second part of that question is, are they able to choose how they dictate, or does the health system determine what they will use?
So basically the move from with Epic, kind of the initial rollout, and I tried to describe this before, but we established a governance model that had, in essence, a medical director within each department who was kind of the champion of informatics of that department. And that covered documentation workflows as well as orders and really everything else for that department. So that was how we kind of established that up front with the Epic rollout. And in essence, those different department medical directors reported into our Chief Medical Information Officer, who then kind of helped champion different projects and initiatives through our clinical governance group, who has both a physician and a nursing and a pharmacy perspective on it. So that general governance model is how we approached kind of the initial rollout of Epic and kind kind of move from where we were with transcription to writing notes in Epic. And again, as I shared, pretty much right out of our out of the gate with the Epic go live, we saw a huge drop in our transcription numbers, and in essence, our goal with the Nuance project wasn't for transcription savings. It was kind of the unintended consequence of removing transcriptionists, which was physician dissatisfaction with kind of the Epic note writing capabilities, which then is what we targeted with Nuance. So then when we started to roll out Dragon Medical One, we really leveraged that same infrastructure, if you will, from the medical directors representing each specialty in each department, reporting into our CMIO, and then supplemented that with the PTP experts who kind of brought to the table expertise both on Epic workflows, so they understood what we were talking about from an Epic workflow perspective, as well as the Nuance technology. And I thought that was really important to have that bridge between the workflow experts and the technical experts. And I'm sure as everyone on the call has experienced, if you don't have that bridge, there can be issues that you do encounter because the workflow is missed from the technical side and vice versa. So PTP really kind of solved that gap, if you will. And then we pretty much universally require that you're creating a note within Epic, and through the voice recognition capabilities in Epic, or through other capabilities on Epic has for writing those notes. And then also, as mentioned before, we haven't rolled out Epic partial dictation, so this is really kind of core note writer capabilities. And that mix of structure and free text capabilities, focusing the structure on physical exam, root systems, things like that.
Great,
Hopefully
thank you.
that answers the question.
Great, thank you so much. Another question back to you is, what is your expectation for DMA and CAPD, and is it embedded in Epic?
Yeah, so our expectation is that we would pick some key quality initiatives. So if that's around sepsis or something to that effect, and really provide kind of guidance to the physician on key markers within the note and the chart for what's going on that could help for higher qualities of care. And again, we would focus on things that directly tie to key quality initiatives. Right now, how we're approaching it would be it's not embedded within Epic per se. It's basically a kind of an overlay on top of Epic. So these aren't kind of any of the capabilities that may have been seen in other forums that are directly embedded, but this is kind of the window overlay on top of Epic. Again, with the thought of we could do this directly with the physician through their dictation.
Okay, great. So back to the training aspect. In the initial 2-hour training session that you required, what did you see was the optimal size class, optimal class size for that?
So the classes you typically would range from 15 to 20, and I think that suited our purpose as well. We also had that at the elbow approach for an additional hour or kind of follow-up, and to be honest, we didn't need that. And that additional hour was more around fine-tuning the voice profile and things such as that. And again, as I shared, and this is one of the big changes I believe at least we experienced from Dragon Medical Network Edition compared to Dragon Medical One, was that the voice profile took a lot less or really no tuning. So we kind of obsoleted that need for that one-on-one time, that extra hour, if you will. So we thought 15 to 20 is probably the right level, and that 2-hour class to kind of do that initial rollout. Then right now we have both web-based training for new providers as well as in-person training available that people can sign up for. And we do that training ourselves through a team of about 15 or so trainers who are also the team who trains new providers for OneChart and things like that.
Great. Okay, another question in relation to the documentation is, do you perform quality audits on the clinician Dragon-created documentation?
We do quality audits on all our documentation, which would include the voice recognition. And again, some of the subjective information we captured through the survey was higher levels of quality was felt. That was the survey question of the providers that they responded. 71% responded they thought their quality was better. And then we've seen kind of objective information through the quality audits as well that our documentation is much more thorough now through the voice recognition capability.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, we actually now have Dragon Medical Analytics that can be used to make sure that we are tracking how much is being documented compared to without your back-end transcription, as well as the number of auto text used. So there's ways in which we can actually use our analytics to utilize information about the quality of the documentation without ever having any additional products, because it is all part of Dragon Medical One with the analytics dashboard that that's available to you as a client.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, so I know we are nearing the top of the hour, and I think this is going to end the formal part of today's presentation. I want to thank everyone who stayed right up until the end with us, and Brian, once again, for sharing your story with us today. As a reminder, today's presentation was recorded, and a link to that recording will be provided to you via email. And if we did miss a question or weren't able to address it today, we will, once again, ensure that somebody follows up with you in a timely manner. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again, and that's going to end our presentation.